When I submitted this talk a few months ago, I was thinking about developer evangelism and what aspects of developer evangelism would be beneficial to this group. And maybe you're a developer evangelist too. I've met a couple here that are. Or maybe you just work for a technology company and you have certain ideas that you want to share with other people. Maybe it's a product, maybe it's a presentation, maybe it's something you built that you're just trying to convey to others. And so I've been a professional developer evangelist for about 4 years now, developer before that, still a developer. But I was trying to dissect what are the things that we try to impart on the developer community that, how we convey an idea, how we get it to really stick. And so I want to go through some examples of things that we do as developer evangelists in order to be successful, to drive success in our community. And then also how, I've seen examples of this in industry too, of other companies embodying these ideas, seeing if there's like some sort of logic behind the madness. Is there some way that you can get your ideas to stick? Now, just in case you haven't heard the term developer evangelist before, my parents still think I'm a televangelist. I can't get it to stick for some reason. A developer evangelist is someone who empowers developer communities. So we write technical blogs, speak at conferences, lead workshops, answer questions on forums. Our job is to give developers the tools that they need in order to be successful with our technology. So I'm going to take a step back and talk about some of the ingredients to this recipe for success. So as I was coming up with this presentation, I was trying to think of things that have been really influential in my life. And I happened to be babysitting my nephew at the time who was watching Schoolhouse Rock, which is on DVD now. It's so exciting. I haven't seen it in like 20, yeah, right, I haven't seen it in like 20 years. And as I'm watching I'm Just a Bill was one of my favorites, but we were watching this one on the preamble. And I realized I actually know all the words to the preamble still. I don't even think I could say the first 10 amendments. Sorry, I know I'm a terrible American. But I don't think I could even say the first 10 amendments, but I still know the preamble. And it really just made me think, like, why do I know this? Aside from the catchy tunes, like, why does Schoolhouse Rock stick with you, whether or not you realize it's in the back corners of your mind? And I think it's because it's memorable, it's accessible, it's something that you can relate to, and a story that's concise enough that it's not just like conjunction junction. It's like it's actually teaching you something, whether you realize it or not. And I mean, that's, I think, part of the core of evangelism is trying to convey these things in like an almost intuitive way that you can internalize what it is you're learning and be able to take that and apply it to your job, whatever it is that you're building or whatever app that you're trying to create. And so how can we take that idea of Schoolhouse Rock and apply it to anything that we're doing, communicating with our teams, giving presentations, going to conferences, literally just trying to explain a demo of something that you built? What are those key factors? So the first element of the recipe seems pretty obvious, but especially when it comes to code, it's like not intuitive. It takes every line of code, given that you wrote it in a good way. It takes every line of code to get this app to work. And so it's like, how do you cut to the core so you're not getting stuck in all the minutia and all of the extra details when you're trying to break it down in an understandable way? And being simple and concise is really the core to getting any message across. I think Twitter really embodies this well because it forces you to be concise in 140 characters, but it also is a way for you to be able to really think, what exactly is it that I'm trying to cut to? What am I trying to tell someone? And how is the most efficient way I can say it? And I mean, when it comes to, even giving a tech talk or a lightning talk, it's kind of like the text version of that, where it's like, what is my main point and how can I drive it home? When it comes to writing blogs and having sample apps, following that same concept of how can I stick my main message into 140 characters, how can I set the bar, the context for what it is that I'm trying to teach, so that I don't necessarily need to get in the weeds of explaining everything about every single detail of this app or this product or whatever it is. This app, it's kind of blurry up here, I think, but this app on the phone, it's an awesome application built on top of Salesforce for being able to sort through 1,500 beers stored inside of Salesforce. You can search by name, you can search by tag, you can use the little alcohol slider at the bottom. Who chooses beer by alcohol percentage? I don't know, not me. But yeah, exactly. But when it comes to dissecting this app and talking about how it's built, I mean, are we talking about the architecture here? It's built using React and it has Bootstrap for the front end, but then it also has Node as the runtime environment. Am I talking about how all that's stitched together? Or am I talking about just step by step, these are the elements in how to build a React app? Setting that tone, that core message in 140 characters starting out in the abstract or whatever it may be is key so that people aren't expecting one certain thing. You're setting the context so that they'll be able to get the most out of whatever it is you're trying to convey. Now, something also that is very important, not just to evangelism, but to technologists, is this idea of credibility. No one's going to listen to you if they think that you're just spouting BS. And there's a whole, level of truth to everything that you're saying. I'm a developer. I am allergic to salespeople. I don't want to hear, false promises or overarching statements that don't have any merit. And so I think that setting the tone of who you are and why you're credible is really important early on. Now, a company that I think really embodies this is Tesla. Tesla's not only a new company, or I guess they aren't new now, but they weren't only starting as a new company, they were starting out as a new vertical in their industry. And Elon Musk didn't even have any credibility as a car manufacturer or, basically all he had to his name at that point was PayPal. And even that, he got let go from. And so it's like, why do we trust him to build us cars? Why do we trust him to deliver this new technology? And really, he made a lot of big promises. He made a lot of very bold statements that he was able to uphold. The Tesla Roadster looks like a Lotus, which at the time, hybrid cars only looked like shoes. Like they were just like really weird looking. Tesla Roadster had this amazing range off of a lithium-ion battery, which hadn't been done before. And he was able to deliver, and that was great. So all of a sudden, people were like, okay, Tesla, we need to keep our eye on this. And then in 2013, they had a recall. There was this axle problem where they thought that, that nothing actually happened, but there was a potential that this welded bracket might give. And so Elon Musk specifically, like himself, sent emails to all of these people that own the car and said, hey, no one's gotten hurt, nothing's happened, but because quality is paramount to us, we would love to take your car in, service it, and then give it back to you. And usually this would be a death sentence, like for a new company. Having to do a recall within the first 5 years is insane. But it actually established this credibility with them that now people are like, you really do care about your customers. It's not about the money, and quality is clearly important to you because you caught this before anyone else did. And so similarly to evangelism or a product or anything like that, being able to put your money where your mouth is and actually be able to back up your core values with action is extremely important. Now, as an evangelist, the way that we are able to establish our dev cred, as I like to call it, is through things like Stack Overflow, GitHub, being able to answer questions, show apps you're working on. There are a lot of online credentialing systems now, like Salesforce, we make trailheads, so you can be able to, build things in Salesforce and get badges for it. There's a ton of online resources to do the same. And so having that sort of digital portfolio to be able to establish why you are doing what you're doing, what you're passionate about, that's super, super important. Now, with any presentation, any idea, the best way to connect with someone is through a story. It helps you paint a picture in a way that outlining all of the bullets of that conversation wouldn't be able to do. Like, what was the cartoon that I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation? What was the song that I was able to remember from 20 years ago? There's something about the way stories connect with our brain that allow us to remember those details in a way that just a slide with bullets wouldn't. And what would you rather do? Would you rather hear someone explain to you how a bill is passed, or would you rather hear a bill sing about his life in limbo waiting to be a law? I personally would rather have the latter, unless it was Donald Trump, because I would like to hear him try and explain how a bill is passed. I think that'd be really interesting. But I think a really good example of this in a product is who remembers the Google Glass video? I personally, I still don't want a Google Glass. I still don't own a Google Glass. But for the 10 minutes after I watched this video, I was like, oh man, that is the future. That is so cool how you can use this, because it told the entire story of all of the different ways you could use Google Glass through a story. You were watching it through the eyes of a person in Google Glass. From playing with your kids and having you couldn't use your hands, so you're taking a video through the glass, getting directions while you're driving, being able to take a picture on the go. It told such a powerful story in a way that you were able to connect what other use cases, what personal use would I have for it in my life, that just saying, this is Google Glass. It can take pictures, it can give you directions, just a way that that would never be able to do. This is also a really powerful teaching device. With developer communities, it's like, there's not one canonical app. There's not one thing that's going to make whatever your product does or whatever your new feature is that you built. There's no way to connect that with everyone in a better way than a story. When I started out at Salesforce, the only way to learn Salesforce, the main way to learn Salesforce was through the workbook. And the workbook was, this kind of simplified schema for managing a warehouse, and there's merchandise and line items and all these things that personally, by the time I got through the entire workbook, I was like, what did we build? I followed all the click paths, but it didn't make perfect sense. And mainly it's because I didn't have this holistic idea or view of everything that we were building. And so when I had the opportunity about 3 years ago to get to work on a revamp of this on-ramp, I was thinking, what would connect? What would people understand that would resonate more, just because it's something you inherently get? And then from there, maybe it'll push you to think out of the box, because you don't need to think about the bare bones, what is the point here? What are we doing? And so when we were thinking about what would globally connect, we thought about music. And music is something that everyone understands. And because Salesforce is something that allows you to manage a process or manage a business, what's a business around music? So we made an app to manage a music festival. And the whole app takes you through this idea of, we're going to a music festival, what's here? We're tracking bands, we're tracking stages, we're tracking people, or attendees. And all of a sudden, we started seeing people from around the world that didn't even have any sort of background in application development, computer science, anything, connecting with this idea because they thought it was fun. It was just this, I didn't realize I was building a mobile app. Oh my gosh, we just built a mobile app. It was awesome. And it was a lot more sticky for when it came to adding on features to that application in the end. And that really leads me to another factor that I've seen in a lot of the different talks that we've had this week, and basically any talk that's ever stuck with me that gets you to think in a different way. Being against the grain, there's no better way to get someone's attention than to break a pattern. And flying over here, it's like I took Virgin America from San Francisco to Boston, and when they start out the plane, you have your safety, like there's an exit in the front and the side, and this is a flotation device, and this is how you use a seatbelt in case you didn't know. And it's just like no one ever pays attention during this. You're basically trying to be on your phone and hide it because you're not supposed to be on your phone. And Virgin America decided to completely revamp this and put a video that basically dances you and break dances its way through all of the safety instructions. And all of a sudden, everyone's paying attention to something they've heard a million times before, but it's so much more engaging. It also acts as a way for you to present information in a way that can make people think differently. There's this program called An Hour of Code. Has anyone? Yes, okay, awesome. There's a lot of people that use it. It's a really great program for kids to be able to learn how to code, or not necessarily code per se, but they can do computer science related topics in a fun way. It's basically disguised as a bunch of games, but it forces you to think logically in a similar way to object-oriented programming and other concepts like that. And it's got a very concise vision, but it basically paints the motivation for doing this through a series of stories. If you click the watch the video, why would I want to do this? It takes CEOs like Jack Dorsey or Mark Zuckerberg, or even social icons, like if your kid's into sports, maybe you want to see Chris Bosh has done this, like Jessica Alba. There's all these different people that you wouldn't necessarily peg as coders doing this thing and having fun and talking about how it can be beneficial. And I think it was a much stickier way of presenting computer science because it doesn't seem like, oh, this is science, this is work. This is fun. Similarly, one of the most viral blogs in our Salesforce history was on this thing called ForceCraft, which is basically Salesforce working with Minecraft. And let me tell you, nobody is using Salesforce with Minecraft. There's no child trying to run business applications using Minecraft. But it was an amazing example because it demonstrated APIs in this extremely unexpected and unconventional way. Pat Patterson, he comes to Monktober, or he's been to Monktoberfest. He was the person that built this application with his son. They're basically adding mods to Minecraft, and he's like, well, what if I could connect this to my Salesforce org? It's, REST API, that should be able to be plugged in there. And all of a sudden, there were people that didn't know what an API was, people that didn't know what a REST endpoint was, being able to explain it because they were able to push it back to, when I pull this lever, it affects my data in Salesforce. When I create a contact, it creates a new man in this world. Close a deal, and all of a sudden there's gold flying everywhere. It was a very valuable example for being able to demonstrate how these integrations worked. Now the final fifth thing, the last thing that's often forgotten because, companies, when they talk about their product, they talk about all the things that it does, but they don't talk about why it's important. Think about your end consumer. Think about the person you're talking to. I was trying to think of when I was here, what's the value of watching a talk at a conference? And really, it's about, what do you get out of it? What is the person that's going to benefit from whatever it is you're trying to give? What are they going to get out of it? And so I want to present two examples of two different ways of presenting a very similar product and talk about how one mainly focuses on the what, where the other focuses on the value, and how those two things side by side feel completely different. So I went to the Galaxy website, and this is how they market their phone. This is how they basically present a phone. You can take great shots anywhere, shoot like a pro, more fun in every frame, blah, blah, blah. And how it works is with this size screen, this megapixel camera, this HD video recording, blah, blah, blah. That's great. It's very great. If I just dropped my phone and I was looking for a new one, this would be enough to let me know, hey, this phone's for me. Now, it doesn't really necessarily draw me in. It doesn't keep me there. It doesn't engage me in any way. And I don't really know how this might benefit me other than these are the features it has. Now, going to Apple's website, it's kind of like the flip side of how to present that same information. Why there's nothing quite like the iPhone. It starts with why. Why? Because this iPhone is built on a belief that above all, a phone should be simple, beautiful, and magical to use. And when you start scrolling through this page, it starts talking about how you're going to have value. You're going to have this, you're going to be able to connect with your family. You're going to be able to take all of these pictures in a faster, more beautiful way. You're going to be able to intuitively use all of these different features, and it'll add productivity, add all of this extra value into your life. And I think that, it's the exact same information for both phones, but one's presented in a way that's focused on you versus a way that's focused on the phone. And ultimately, it's about connecting with whoever it is you're talking to. Now, I want to take it, before signing off, I want to take it back to us. Why are we all here? Why do you go to conferences? What is it about a conference that makes you go? And I really think that's where Monktoberfest hit it on the head with adding value. It's partially beer. Beer is great. And it's also, all conferences are the same in that you have sessions, you have networking, you have these events, you have these things that you do. But the value of why you go, what drives you or motivates you to fly across the country to go, that's something that's so special to this conference, and I think that that's really how this conference hit the nail on the head to bring such a unique group of people together about something that everyone believes in. It's not just about, hey, here's the sessions. You go to the website, you can't even see what the sessions are. You just know that you're going to have a good time and that you are interested in what this conference stands for, and I think that's really cool. And that's the inception of this presentation. As I was trying to plan my presentation for this conference, I was like, how can I come up with something that'll be sticky? How can I come up with something that will add value to people? How can I impart something about developer evangelism and the way that we build our communities and how we connect with our developers? I think that this is something that, is important and it's valuable, and it's something that hopefully walking away from this presentation, maybe if you were awake, you can be able to use some of these tips too. So go forth, be sticky. I hope your ideas stick, and thank you so much for coming today and watching me.